Welcome to TechRadar Talks. I'm TechRadar's gaming writer Vic Hood.
And I'm Gerald Lynch, Senior Editor for Homes and Lifestyle. A few weeks back, we had the official reveal of the new PS5 controller. That's the DualSense. And we thought it'd be a nice idea to take the look that Sony has revealed and apply it to what we'd like to see from the actual console itself. Now, Vic, we've had a render built up by our magic working design teams. What do you think of it?
I think it looks pretty good. I think it's pretty spot on. The only quite obvious is it's long, doesn't it? It's quite a quite a long console, a bit like a Wii balance board, I guess, is the only thing I would put out. But I think apart from that, it could be pretty spot on, especially with that white and black two-tone design that we know that the PlayStation 5 is likely going to end up having.
So we know that the new consoles are going to be very powerful, which means they're going to need a lot of room to dissipate heat. So I think what the design gets right is by making it long and flat as opposed to tall and chunky like the Xbox. You've got less chance of like component stacking and yet still have quite a lot of surface area, hopefully if there's like vents hidden in there, to move that heat around. Although I can't remember another console going, if our render proves close to the reality of the PS5, that's been that long and flat for a while. What do you think of that, Vic?
No, I think, well, the PlayStation 4 is quite compact, I guess, as compact as you can probably get a console like that, given the components that are inside.
Especially the slim one.
So, yeah, and they're gonna probably, there's only so much you can do with that space, right? But they need to keep it sleek and they need to keep it streamlined. It needs to be something that can kind of tuck away under someone's TV quite easily. And while Xbox, like you said, are building up, they're going to need something that can kind of slot in to your TV stand
Yeah,
or something like that quite easily. So I don't know if it'll be as long as that. It could be that we see it slightly chunkier than what we see there, but still quite flat. But I think between the components and the vents that it needs, we're not going to, I doubt we're going to see something smaller than the PlayStation 4. I doubt we'll probably see something that's even PlayStation 4 size, to be
yeah.
honest.
So we have seen a dev console, right? That's more or less been confirmed as
Yeah.
being a reality, and it had this really weird sort of V-shaped dip in the middle of it. So it was kind of like tall with lots of vents on the sides and stuff like that. Where do you think that plays into how our render has worked out?
Yeah. Well, historically, none of the dev kits that we've ever seen PlayStation put out actually look like the console. And
Yeah,
the weird thing is that when we seen that, we were like, that's very alien. Obviously, it's not going to look as alien in the real console.
yeah.
But now we're seeing what looks like it's going to be quite an alien futuristic looking console.
Yeah, it's interesting that the DualSense has kind of thrown what my expectations for that console were. Like the dev kit was like some sort of H.R. Geiger kind of creation, the guy who did the Xenomorph from the Aliens films. But the pad itself, the DualSense pad, almost has like a Stanley Kubrick 2001: A Space Odyssey kind of feel to it.
Yeah, it's proper like minimalistic, like futuristic, that type of thing. And I think we're not going to see like the chunky, like 80s sci-fi type dev kit, but we might see, modern futuristic. But I don't think it'll be V-shape. That V-shape we were kind of looking at, and a lot of those vents were in round that V. And the way that a render kind of shows is we're going to probably still have that amount of vent, but they'll probably try and tuck them out of the way.
Yeah,
Like they'll want to keep that design still as sleek as possible. And actually, as you can see in the one that we've got, with that kind of black underbelly that we've got, the vents kind of feed into that a little
yeah.
bit. That's what I kind of like about this design as well. It's primarily white and stuff. The vents kind of are tucked away in the black. There's a lot of them, but you can't really see it because the white is what draws your eye when you have a look
Yeah.
at it.
Props to our design team on this one because it actually kind of hides how tall the console is as well. It kind of gives this sort of illusion of like shadow coming down from that first half of the console down into where the vents are. So I think it's actually pretty smart actually. I mean, these guys need a job at Sony.
Yeah.
What they're doing mucking about with us, to be honest. But what is
Yeah.
interesting is our designers have gone for physical buttons. on the front. There's a physical power button. Now the PS4 Pro, which I have, has kind of like a little strip of like really thin buttons that you can kind of like push in, and they kind of bend in towards the console, but they're not like a little chunky button that
Yeah.
you depress into it. And I think was the original PlayStation had like original PS4 had
It's
like touch sensitive
it's
button.
like tap, but it's a pain. The tap is a
Yeah,
pain because you accidentally like swipe over it gently and immediately the discs are popping out and stuff. So they might avoid that and might go with more the PS4 approach where, you know, it's not a chunky button, but it's still not got that problem of like touch, I
yeah.
guess. I think it's worth talking about the overall, you know, that white, that controversial white that's everywhere, that I think it'd be hard to avoid at this point, assuming that it's going to be a white console.
What was the last console to launch as a white machine, as just white from the off? Would that be maybe the Dreamcast?
The 360 was as well.
Yeah, yeah, the 360.
Xbox tends to do that.
Yeah,
The problem with that is I just worry about it getting dirty. I'll be
yeah.
honest.
But you don't touch it that much.
Like,
Right? It's tucked away under your TV stand, hopefully.
yeah, well, there's the possibility, like, people have been hoping that they might do like a switcheroo and have that you can get a white console with black belly, or you can get a black console with white underbelly.
Yeah,
But that seems like an awful lot of work for launch. It might
yeah.
happen later because you see like white consoles and other colored consoles coming out later, but I don't think at launch we're going to see. And I also don't think at launch, if that DualSense is white, that we're going to get a black console because the two just they're meant to match. That's the way it's always kind of been.
See, I'm of an age to remember when you'd buy a white console, say like the Amiga 500, my first baby, or like the SNES, Super Nintendo, depending on what you like to call it, and all of the white bits would go like this kind of creamy color in the sun
Oh,
after they age. So I'm looking forward to the 5-year anniversary of the PS5 when they put out like a creamy colored version to reflect the heritage of fading plastics. Make Greta would be proud. One thing that I think we are missing on our render, which I think, or I would at least like to see come to the PS5. Now we know the PS5 is going to support PSVR, and PSVR
yeah.
currently uses like a really annoying box thing that you've got to pop on the top of your console and then plug into the back of your console. Assuming that those innards are built into the PS5, which I would love if that was the case, so the PS5 is out of the box, ready to take your headset. It'd be really cool to see the PSVR ports on the front of the PS5, so that you can
Yeah.
take it in and out without having to dig around the back of the machine. Because one of the things that really annoys me about the PSVR right now is kind of how chunky that whole add-on is.
Yeah.
And especially if you, like me, I have the first generation PSVR. So when I say first generation, there was just a small revision halfway through its life cycle, where the first PSVR box doesn't allow for HDR pass through. So if you wanted to play your games in HDR, you then had to unplug all of your PlayStation VR kit, plug your TV HDMI cable back into the back of your console, and then carry on to get your HDR stuff. So for me, actually, the trade-off between watching my TV shows and like playing my games in HDR versus how often I pick up my PSVR headset has been that like my PSVR headset can be a bit unloved because I know I've got to faff around to get that HDR content.
Yeah.
Now I know that anyone who bought a later version doesn't have that problem, but either way, you've still got that chunky sort of control box that sits on top. So I'd like to hope that the the PS5, I've just invented a whole nother machine. The PS5 has the PSVR control box built in and with the ports easily accessible from the front. That would be really cool. But we'll see if that's something that they maintain. Now we know that the PSVR, the
Yeah.
original PSVR headset, is going to work with the PlayStation 5. What will the inevitable PSVR 2 require, and will they be forward thinking enough to put that in the box straight away?
Yeah. I guess that would be the problem is if you have the PSVR going to be backwards compatible. don't know if PSVR 2 will be there for a while yet.
Yeah.
It might be a couple that might be a couple of years off. They'll be putting their focus into that right now. So I don't know if they would have it in immediately in the box, but it might be a way they might have a way of slimming it down, I guess. It looks like from what we've seen and like rumors and stuff that the controllers and stuff, they look like they're trying to slim down that PSVR experience in some way. So it'd be interesting to see.
So I guess the
The
one thing that we do have and that we do know for sure is what the launch Xbox Series X console is going to look like.
yeah,
So based on what we have seen of the DualSense controller and our own sort of working out, it seems like they're going to be very different looking consoles, right? They seem to be taking a very different approach to design. The Xbox Series X looks very industrial, whereas at least the DualSense controller seems to be a little bit more curvy, a little more airy. I don't know if you feel that's true.
I think so. Yeah, the I think Microsoft seems to be embracing more that PC power that it has behind it. So the Xbox Series X looks like a PC gaming tower. It's built up, and they are focusing on that spec stuff and the power aspect of it. Whereas I think PlayStation doesn't have that tie to PC, and it hasn't got an already made base of PC players. Essentially, it seems like Xbox, Microsoft are trying to like merge those two player bases that it has, especially if you look at like Game Pass and stuff, Game Pass Ultimate, where you can play your games on PC and the Xbox, whereas Sony doesn't really have to worry about that. They're a games console, and they seem to be trying to do a next gen games console in their vision, if that makes sense. And that is going to be, sleek, futuristic, but it's interesting. It's such a departure from what we've seen from them before. And every time a new PlayStation's come out, it's just seemed more and more mature. Like every time I've said it, it's like they're both going through this teenage angsty phase, and Sony is now like shaking off those designs it had, and it's like, this is not a toy anymore. This is a beautiful gaming machine. Look at
Yeah,
our beautiful gaming machine. And I think that it kind of, even if it's just a design, it says a lot about how they're approaching this generation, the next generation, just full stop.
yeah.
Um, and there'll be more definitely to come. They'll have more surprises. There's so much we don't know about what they've got planned that we're expecting to hear, and even when that's going to happen, we're not even quite sure.
And it's a world away from what Nintendo have been doing with the Switch, right?
Yeah, well, I guess the difference over the years has been that Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox don't. Nintendo doesn't really have to compete with PlayStation and Xbox. There used to be a time where kind of all three were kind of in the same sphere, and then Xbox and PlayStation took this more mature approach, stopped trying to focus on being family friendly. They don't have like mascots like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro that appeal to a mass range, and that doesn't mean they don't make games for kids. It just means that they're not trying to appeal to everybody in what they do. Whereas if you think about Nintendo, while they have some, games like Skyrim that I guess are for more adults, most of the stuff they have is that anyone in a family can
Yeah.
play.
Even not Sky, I'm sorry. Even Breath of the Wild is like family friendly, right?
Yeah, everything they do, it doesn't mean it's for kids. It just means that it hits a wider range.
Yeah,
And while we're going into this generation, Nintendo could be the one winning out when it comes to families, because it's not cheap, but like things like the light provide like a cheaper option that people with families can have, for the kids can play it, that they can play it. Whereas it looks like Sony and Xbox, we've not really seen any like kid family friendly features about any of these consoles so far.
yeah.
All we're hearing is about that like raw power, and we don't know what games are coming, and that we know it's going to be pricey. So it feels like it is PlayStation and Xbox in one camp, and then Nintendo's just doing their whole thing and have made a niche doing something that they're great at, and they've always stayed true to those roots that they have of being a console that anyone in the family can play and everyone should play together.
Yeah. Super Mario laughs at your teraflops. But okay, so Vic, if you had one must-have design feature for the PS5 in terms of like its industrial design, what would you have?
um, if it's like anything that we
Anything.
could have, I guess, it'd
Can't
be
print money.
nice to have like apart from spending money, that nice that whole big, well, it's only really an R render, but that big like plate we have in the middle,
Yeah,
it'd be pretty good to just be able to stick your controller on there and just charge. Just leave it, no problem. I'm forever trying to remember to swap them out. But if you could just stick it on there, stick whatever you need on there, and it's like a flat base charging thing, they're never going to do that. But it would be
truly
very good if they
wireless
did for.
chargers. Cool. So with no E3 coming up now, knowing that we already know what the Xbox Series X looks like, it's probably not long to go until we actually get to finally see what the PS5 will look like for real, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's likely. So E3's thrown all the plans out the window. Sony wasn't going to E3 anyway, but there's industry analysts have said that the very first proper showcase, the one we want to see with the games and everything, has been moved forward. That's probably going to be Xbox, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which all the rumors seem to point to Xbox next month because they're no longer confined, but I don't think Sony will be far behind. It's so hard because they're a wild card. I was initially predicting a June, July kind of time for them um, to properly console, but they may bring it forward. Um, it's just really hard to tell. We know that it's going to be in the next few months. That's when we get the games, we get the design, we get the price, but I'm still thinking May's too soon for them. It might be June, July. July's maybe too late, but I think we're still looking at that kind of window. It's just so hard to tell with them, to be honest, this generation.
So just enough time for me to dust off my copy of Knack.
Yes, plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
Hopefully, we just don't have to hear long. I think we're at hype point now. We just give us the games. Just stop messing us about. Show us just one game. I just want to see one game, Gerald. That's it.
And when we do, TechRadar Talks will be there to let everyone know what we think about it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is TechRadar Talks. Make sure to give the channel a like and a subscribe, and we'll be back when we know what the PlayStation 5 actually looks like.
Bye.
Bye.